Termite Watkins again and Mr. S, and we've got another great day for you today. We got Roy Creager. Roy, I'm excited about this. You know, we've been sitting here talking, and you got an incredible story, and that's what we tell. We tell stories, and we're going to ask you, we're going to pick your brain, and we're going to get you to tell us your story just like you did because, guys, I tell you, it's incredible. So, Roy, tell me, how did you get started in life?
Well, life has been full of challenges, you know, but full of opportunities as well. And, you know, just raised from humble beginnings to just a great American success story, I guess. That's my story.
You certainly are a success story. So I want to first set the tone before we go back to your humble beginnings. You own a business, very successful business. Y'all throw great parties at your house, which I've gone to. Beautiful home, host a lot of people. I know you go to Cabo St. Lucas. I want to paint the picture of how successful this guy is. So y'all built a house in Cabo St. Lucas. You spent a couple months there. You do different things. You're traveling. You are living a great life. You've built that. So I want to set that tone like, hey, this guy's doing it. But now we're going to get to like, it wasn't that easy. So yes, you are doing really well with your business. And then we'll talk more about that. But now I guess we can go ahead and rewind. And what are these humble beginnings? You didn't come from money. You didn't have a silver spoon. No one said, hey, here's a business, Roy, and your grandpa started it back in the 1800s and now you're going to keep it running. So where did you grow up and how many sisters and brothers and what did your parents do?
Yes. So I'm from a little bitty town called San Diego, Texas.
Okay.
It sits between Laredo, Texas, and Corpus Christi, Texas.
Way down south.
Way down south. You know, town a little over 5,000 people. Little bitty school. And I went to college in Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Went and got a industrial vocational degree because back in the, I guess when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, the oil field was the number one employer down there.
And it still is in Texas.
It still is, you know. So I saw all of my friends just, you know, that were in the welding industry with their own welding equipment and just living a pretty good life, you know, driving a Corvette back in the mid-'70s and having a nice 3-bedroom brick house.
Well, you were styling back there, driving a Corvette.
Yeah, driving a Corvette.
Them 70s Corvettes are sharp too.
Yeah.
So originally I went to school, to college. I wanted to be a Texas Ranger.
All right.
Okay. Part of the first step was to go get a criminal justice degree. And at that point, you know, you would serve some time as a DPS officer.
Right.
And back in the 70s, there was a DPS officer named Mr. Murphy that was, you know, a nice guy, a very nice guy for a DPS. He knew us young 17, 18-year-olds, and he knew what we were up to on a Saturday night.
Wasn't too hard on you, but he kept an eye. He kept an eye.
And Mr. Murphy was fatally shot one night, you know, doing a routine stop.
Oh, wow.
And while I was in college, that really hit me. And I said, you know, it's time to change careers at that time. Right. So that's when I started, you know, thinking more from an entrepreneurial side that, you know, I'm going to try to do what these friends of mine are doing that are out there owning their own business in the welding industry, working in the oil field. So I went to school in Corpus and spent 2.5 years. I came out certified where I could, you know, just about weld anything there was to weld.
So you picked a trade. You went into the trade.
I picked a trade. And shortly after that, of course, like, you know, anything else, the oil industry kind of went bottoms up.
Like it tends to do.
Right.
Yep.
And I found myself, you know, searching once again in my life. What am I going to do? I just spent 2.5 years and this little dream I was after is now gone. So I decided to pack up my bags. I was about 18, 19 years old. I was in Corpus, living in Corpus with a couple of guys, roommates, and I decided that it was time for me to move. And I said, I'm going to Austin. And no, not knowing what was in Austin other than I had been there a couple of times, and I thought it was a beautiful city, and I would go.
Sounded like a good place to go.
Sounded like a good place to go, you know. Corpus Christi was just not doing me any favors at the time. I couldn't get a job, even though I was somewhat educated. So I go to Austin and spent 2 weeks in Austin, sleeping in my car at Zilker Park which there was no fee for that. I was not married at the time. I was still a single guy, so it was no big deal. So I slept in my car for 2 weeks and went on interviews and interviews and interviews until I landed an interview. And this opportunity was with a company that was a wastewater manufacturer. So basically, they would come and they would build the whole wastewater treatment plants, if you would, right?
Okay.
And so I was certified in reading blueprints, welding, just about any metal there was.
Right.
So I got a job.
Got a job.
I got a job.
That was the mission.
It was great. You know, I needed a job. I was tired of living out of my car. So, but it still wasn't what I wanted to do. But I knew that it was a stepping stone at that point. So I did that for maybe 4 or 5 years. And
It's a good while.
it's a good while. It's a good while. And I met my wife in Austin, my wife of now 35 years. I think I'm 35 years. I got to do the math.
Congratulations. Anywhere close to there is good.
Yes. And so after about 4 years, the company decided to merge with another company, and I once again was left out. So
during the merger, that your position got squeezed out.
that's exactly right. And that's life.
That happens to a lot of folks.
That's life. And at that time, you know, you start asking yourself, good grief, how many more times is this going to happen in my life? You know, it's time to really start pursuing your dream, and that is to work for yourself. So my wife, Celeste, her father was in the welding industry. He had his own business for many years, and he had an old welding truck that was just sitting behind his house that needed some work. And I said, well, I guess I could get that, and I have a trade.
Get it up
I have
and
a
running.
machine. I could go and start my own business.
Right.
So I had a nice, clean car. I don't even remember the year of it, but it was probably a mid 80s Crown Victoria LTD.
wow.
You know,
The
just a
old Crown
You,
Vic.
you were styling.
just a beautiful car. You know, I was proud of that car. Well, I traded my nice car for that ugly machine, but I knew that was an opportunity for me to make some money. So I did that. Did some odds and end jobs. I got into the construction business, and by construction I mean heavy equipment. So I became a welder, you know, repairing bulldozers,
Fabricating and repairs.
front end loaders, all the stuff that was out on subdivision sites. And man, that's hard work.
Yeah.
Anybody who does that is hard work.
especially South Texas in the summertime.
Yeah, well, now I was in Austin.
Okay.
I was in Austin.
Well, still,
now.
Texas in the summertime,
and,
outside welding.
Yeah, and it was very difficult, very, very difficult. And you know, on the rainy days where construction really doesn't work, and you see all these machines parked on the road, guess what? That's when the welder shows up to fix all the stuff. So you're laying in the mud, and I came home, and I would tell Celeste that I'm not quitting, but I tell you what, I cannot wait for the day that I can say I am done with this job. And that ran its course as a contractor for probably 2 years. And I remember there was another merger. The company was a privately held
thought they're
company
behind you.
and got bought once again. And they decided to have an in-house welder at the time. And once again, I was pushed out. So here I go again, trying to find myself. So at that time, I told Celeste we had just bought a house in Austin, and we had just had a baby that was maybe 3 months old. And I walked in one day, and I raised my hands, and I said, honey, I got laid off today, and I am so happy. I am so happy because I didn't want to quit.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I'm not a
can understand
quitter.
that.
I'm not a quitter. I had a responsibility. I had a wife. I had a house, and I would do whatever. I said, but you know what? I'm going to Houston.
Yeah.
And so
Why Houston?
Why Houston? Because Houston was more of my kind of city that could appreciate my skill set. You know, you have
Makes
the
sense.
refineries, you have pipelines. There's a lot of welders in Houston. It's just a bigger pie for you to come in there and be part of.
Hey, let's just face it. Houston has opened the doors for many people. Houston is a great city, and it's a great city to be a part of.
Absolutely.
The industry, there's so much here.
Absolutely.
It's not the most beautiful. I think Austin's gorgeous scenic-wise. But, hey, it's money town. It's land of opportunity. That's what I call it.
That's
it.
exactly right.
That's right.
I could not see myself, being what I wanted to be in Austin. Even though it's a beautiful city, it wasn't for me.
Right.
So I told Celeste to bear with me. I moved to Houston. She stayed in Austin. Her parents lived.
That's a big step.
Her parents lived here, and I said, "Honey, let me get to Houston. Let me get a job, and then I'll bring you up." She said, "Okay." So I came to Houston, and once again, bunch of resumes that went out, and I landed a job. And the reason I landed a job because the Alaskan oil spill, the famous Valdez oil spill, had just
Sean
happened,
Valdez,
right?
yeah.
In March of 1989, right? It just happened. And I walked into this company called Abasco. Don't know if you ever crossed.
I do remember.
Okay,
that.
Abasco standard for American Boat and Skimmer Company,
Okay.
and they had a major contract on building these skimmer boats. Well, guess what? These skimmer boats were made out of aluminum. So I knocked on the door, and I remember the old man, old Dusty Rhodes, came out and said, "Do you know how to weld, son?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, we're going to find out real quick. Let's go to the back." So we went to the back, and he said, "Here's what I want you to do." And he said, "You got about 10 minutes to show me." So
Put some pressure on you.
put some pressure on me. So in 10 minutes, I was done with my test, and he looked at it. He said, "You're hired. You need to start tomorrow."
Oh, wow.
So I was happy that now I had a job, but it was still not something that I wanted to do.
Back into welding. At least you're not laying in the mud this time.
That's right. It was better, right? So I told them, I said, "Look, I want to weld, but for a short term. What I want to do is I want to get into sales with this company. So if you'll promise me that I will get promoted into sales."
Now, what spurred that?
Because I felt I could sell. Because while I was in Austin, I'll go back to Austin, while I was welding for this company on my own, I was selling life insurance in the afternoons.
Interesting.
So at 5 o'clock, I got off my job, and my first appointment was at 6:30, and I'd work all the way to 9 o'clock. And I did that every day.
Making use of the time.
Making some time. So I got experience of being in front of people and doing a sales pitch. And I used to sell for A.L. Williams,
I remember
term
that
life. Remember
company.
A.L. Williams?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Invest in term, buy term and invest the rest, right?
Yeah.
So I believed in that product, and I was passionate about it. And we made some extra income to allow us to have an extra vacation a year, if you would,
Right.
and just to help with some of the bills. So
Icing on the cake.
yeah. Lazy was not in my, livelihood.
I can tell. I can tell.
So they said, "You know what? You got a deal, and go ahead and start welding, and, we'll move you into sales when the time is right." And I said, "Okay, how about in 6 months?" And they said, "Okay, you have a deal." Not knowing that they would fulfill their promise on that.
At least you took that step and opened your mouth.
Right. So this company build skimmers that skim oil off the top. You see them on television, right? They build the
Cleanups.
containment booms, all the white pads, all that kind of stuff. That's what they did there. So 6 months is here. They moved me after 3 months from the welding division. They moved me over to the boom division. They moved me over to the parts division. And in 6 months, they said, "Okay, it's time for you to go sell for us now that you know everything around here." And here's a key map book. Remember those
Key maps, yes,
Remember
I
those
do.
key map books?
We didn't have GPS. We had maps.
We had a key map book, and there was no cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
People can't even imagine. Some of the our younger listeners cannot even fathom. No GPS, no cell phone, and you have a notebook.
You have a notebook.
No Siri.
No,
no Siri. And they said, "Okay, here's your territory, and you cannot go to these accounts that we have. You need to create your own account." Of course, my territory, they gave me West Texas, they gave me South Texas, they gave me North Texas, Central Texas, but they didn't give me anything around the Houston
Everywhere
area.
but where you live.
Very, very limited, so they kind of handcuffed me on that. And I said,
They
"Okay."
didn't make it easy,
They
essentially.
did not make it easy for me. And but at the same time, I still had Celeste supporting me on this. And, Celeste had now moved to Houston, and we had bought a house. So I'm out there knocking on doors every day and say, who I am and what I do. And I remember there used to be a telephone booth in the corner of 225 and Center Street in Deer Park. So I would pull up to that every lunch hour, and I'd get out of my car and I'd be on the phone making my appointments for.
That was your office.
That was my office for the next day. It's crazy how we do that now.
Phone booth
I don't
office.
even know if you can find a phone booth now. So after about 6 months, I just couldn't get anything done. And I was worried now that, well, there was no going back into the shop, and here we go again, right? And all of a sudden, the orders started to come in. PO started to come in. Started to come in.
Just when you feel like giving up sometimes.
Just when you feel like giving up. And I went back and I told my wife, I said, I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. You know, I'm presenting well. You know, I'm competitive. I keep my promises. I do everything. And it's just not happening. And but it does take time sometimes to build a relationship, because
planting those seeds.
Yeah, success is about relationships.
It is.
You know?
Right.
And you form a relationship. You know,
and relationships take time. You
that's
can't
right.
just instantly.
Yeah, because you might see him.
someone's
You won't
trust.
see him for another month after you talk to him, right? But you know, he's a pretty good guy. You know, I went to lunch with him, and you know, he's got some humble beginning. He's a pretty good guy. I think I'm gonna give him an opportunity. I know where he's at, and I see that in young people as well right now. So after about 6 months, I started getting blessed with some opportunities, and the business started to grow and grow and grow. And during the course of the next 3 or 4 years, I don't remember how long I was there, I would run across a company, the owner of a company that was very successful, and they were more in the emergency response side of the business, you know, very successful. And he would always come up to me at trade shows and say, Roy, how you doing today? And I said, fine, sir, I'm doing good. And he was like, good, that's great. So turns out that I became the account rep for this company.
He had his eye on you. He'd been watching.
He'd been watching me. He watched me for 2 or 3
So
years.
I want to pause. There's a lot of people that are doing the right thing, like you did, and they feel like no one's noticing. I'm doing everything I can. I don't know what's wrong. People are watching.
Right.
There are people watching you if you keep doing the right thing.
That's exactly right.
And you
Do
just
the
got to
right
keep it up.
thing and be persistent.
You're watching. I watch my employees now, and you can tell the ones that you want to help.
Yes.
You know, it's noticeable.
Do the right thing
That's,
when no one's looking.
that's exactly
But keep in mind, there's probably people looking anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I visited with him, and you know, he didn't quite offer me a position, but you know, are you happy where you're at? Just kind of, you know,
Feeling you out.
feeling me out on that. And I said, yes, sir, I am good. And one day, the owner of the company that I was working for came up to me and said, Roy, you have doubled our annual sales revenue. You know, congratulations. But we got a problem. You're making too much money. So we're going to have to adjust your commissions, or you're going to have to pay for your own expenses when you travel out of town.
Wow.
So that was the
That's a big
tipping point right there.
no,
So
thank you.
I went back and I talked to the man that was that offered me a job, I guess, and he says, I'd be happy to hire you. Here's what I'll give you. So I remember calling Celeste. I was going over the Houston Ship Channel Bridge, and I said, honey, I'm moving on to a bigger company. You know, I just got a job offer, and I'm leaving where I'm at. And I worked for this company for 17 years. 17
long
years.
time.
Yeah. I came in as a sales guy, and in 30 days, I became the sales manager.
Oh, wow.
And in another 6 months, I became the VP of all the marketing and development.
So you're just
business
climbing the
development.
ladder.
I just climbed the ladder. And then, you know, I am bilingual. Yo hablo español muy bien.
Un poquito.
Un poquito.
Sí, está bien.
So a lot of these oil and gas companies that had operations, you know, in Central and South America and the Caribbean, wanted these type of services that we were providing, you know, from a response side and from a training side. So we decided to open an international division. So for the next 10, 12 years, I spent most of my time traveling.
Overseeing that?
Overseeing that. And was very successful and had a great opportunity just to grow. But like everything else, you know, after 17 years of a run, you know, the company decided that it was time to sell. And
You've seen that before.
and I've seen that before.
And what year was this?
This was, let me see, it had to have been, well, let me think about that. I'm 64, and so it's 14 years ago. So when would that put us?
Yeah, just over
2000, 2001, something
Yep.
like that.
Something like that.
2001. So I decided, well, what they decided was to sell the company and do away with all the international operations. It just wasn't attracted to private equity company. It just they just didn't know enough about it, and even though it took years, but just it landed a multi-million-dollar contract with the old company down in Brazil.
Wow.
And it took years, and they decided to walk away from it and
So
sell
were
it,
you
which was
without a job at this point?
I was totally without a job. Totally without a job. So I find myself freelancing, and I went to go work for a buddy of mine that had started a company that wanted to start another company with me involved. And that would involve, not only the response side, but kind of replicate where we came from. And at that time, I went and did that. This was in May of 2001, I guess is what it was. And I went and worked for that, and with the promise that we would build something stronger and bigger, and that I would be part of that. And during that transition, at the end of the day, I was told that, we're going to do this. Thank you for putting us on the right path, but we're going to do it without you because we just don't see any value that you can bring to the table, and we're going to go on our own separate ways. That's a gut punch.
Before we continue on with the rest of our story, we want to thank our sponsor. So Texas Hydrostatics is sponsoring this episode. They do service and parts for hydraulic equipment. So if you have any equipment to maintain, pumps, motors, cylinders, give them a call. Look them up at texashydrostatics.com.
Yeah, that was a punch in the gut because I had spent quite a bit of time traveling away from my family. I missed every birthday. I missed New Year's. I missed Christmas. And I'm not complaining, okay?
Right.
There's a price you pay for success.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. There's a bigger price you pay for failure.
That's exactly right.
There's a huge
And I think,
price.
as a, I don't know, maybe I'm more traditional, but as a provider, as a man, I think those are the sacrifices you make.
Absolutely, without question.
Yeah.
Without question. I would just tell Celeste and the kids, honey, I got to work, but look at the bright side. We might be able to afford a new car, or we might be able to move to another neighborhood.
We might be able to buy a house in Cabo in about 20 years.
That's exactly right. And I guess at that time, I found myself, unemployed at the age of 50, and really nervous and really scared on what we were going to do. And going back to working a second job, working a third job, we are working overtime or doing things of that nature. Whenever I went into the international side of this business, I changed my compensation because I was doing things that to me had value, away from my family. I was in Ecuador on a specific trip visiting Chevron, and I was almost kidnapped.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard.
We were
down there.
We were way down in the jungle, and I had never heard. There's a movie called Kidnap and Ransom. Russell Crowe, I think, was in it, and it was filmed in Ecuador. And I had gone and had a meeting way down in the jungle on the Colombian border. We were about 20 kilometers from the Colombian border, and it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We all jumped in a little 4-door Nissan, and we're headed back, to go across the Amazon River to get back to Quito, where I was staying at. And we're doing probably 55, 65 kilometers and going down the highway, and a car starts to pass us, and boom, just runs right into us and knocks us out. And being that I'm bilingual, I realized then when the driver said, he said, we got to hang on. We got to get away from these guys. Didn't really say what they were doing, but I kind of knew. And so he did his job. He got us to the ferry, got us across, and I came back and I asked my boss, I said, we need to really look into some kidnap and ransom insurance in case, this happens again. And he said, well, we're not going to do that. And I said, well, I'm done traveling. And that
it's not worth my life.
That was the end of that. But what that did for me, on the risk reward, is that I allowed my compensation to have some great benefits from me traveling and responding to some incidents, internationally that would compensate me. And one of the instances, there was a major oil spill up in the Andes Mountains in Bolivia that involved 2 major oil companies. One of them isn't around now. And I spent 62 days there commanding. I was a deputy incident commander of this spill, and there was 4,000 people on the ground that didn't speak English. We were above the tree line. It was literally, there was no logistics involved. It was a tremendous opportunity for me to learn from my training and how to implement that. And from that, I was the beneficiary of a great compensation package from that, and allowed Celeste and I to invest our money into rental homes, into different things to start planning for the future. You know,
Yeah, right.
I knew
Those
this,
extras
I
and
knew this wouldn't last. So that was the benefit and the reward for me for going down there and spending all the time.
like you said, you recognized it wouldn't last, and instead of going and buying toys and big boats and
Exactly.
big trucks, you said, "Hey, let's buy a rent house."
Buy a rent house. And Celeste was
think
in the
ahead.
business, so
Yeah, she's a realtor.
That's right. So that was her business. I said, let's go do that. So she did a fantastic job, and to this day, I thank her for that, because that is it's a great investment, and I recommend anybody who has extra cash that works hard, invest it wisely so that you can
Don't buy junk. Don't buy toys.
Right.
Don't
You
buy
can do that
fun.
later.
You can do that later.
You can do that later.
Now, so you're now at the point where
I'm
you got
unemployed.
unemployed at 50.
I'm unemployed, so I went and worked as a subcontractor, which I knew that's what I wanted to do. So we had a family meeting with the kids. I had a daughter in college, and I had a son in high school, and real estate wasn't doing all that great in 2008. It was
A lot of things not doing too great in
a lot of things
2008.
weren't doing good, and I'm unemployed, and I'm 50, and I just don't know how to act, because I've never been unemployed, and if you've never been unemployed, it's hard to find yourself.
Yeah.
You
Kind of lose your identity, especially as a man.
as a man, you lose your identity. I'm supposed to provide. That's how I was raised.
I'm the same.
We're baby boomers, and you work and you provide, by God, and that's just the way it's going to
That's
be.
your job.
That's your job. And
You find yourself without that, and who am I?
that's
Yeah.
exactly
And
right.
especially at 50,
Yeah, it's tough. But I had the support. I had the support of Celeste. She backed me. She was like, Roy, it's too risky. Just go get another job. She said, do what you want to do, and I will support it, and we will get
Wow,
through this.
that's incredible.
Yeah, it was really, truly a blessing. So started up, the company's called FIRST, stands for First and Rescue Safety and Training. Had a very good dear friend of mine, which is a sweat equity partner with me, that came with me from the other company, and with his help and his support, we grew a company that is now a multi-million-dollar company. We have a top brand. Not going to brag on myself too much, but I think
But
now
you
now's the
can.
time to do it.
but
Yeah,
we-
now's the
you
time
built
to
this.
do it. Because you paid a price to get to this point. Brag. Tell
we are the leader in this industry, and I think we are recognized as the leader at what we do.
I see all those trucks driving around town.
Yeah.
We're all over. We work for every major oil and gas company in the area.
Now y'all grew fast too.
We did.
Yeah, y'all like one day you're here,
Yes.
next thing you know you're big.
Yes.
And I would, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I would attribute that to you were 50. So yes, it's not very cool to get cut, no job at 50, but you already have a lot of experience. So when you do start a company, it's not like a 20-year-old starting a company, which is going to have to learn a lot of things. At least you had a lot behind you so that you could grow this thing a lot faster.
That's
because
right.
You have
That's right.
more knowledge.
Yeah, it was very difficult. Logan and I, Logan is my business partner, and Logan and I decided that we're going to do this together. And he had not retired from the Houston Fire Department. He was on his last couple of years, so he was kind of helping me part time. So I was the guy that needed to do all the office work, all the sweeping,
Wear all the hats.
which
Yeah.
I had no problem
Yeah.
with. I understand that. So Celeste is kind of put the finances together behind it. Then she said, "Okay, Roy, here's your little, your stockpile of money that you have right here, and make sure you take care of it. And we have X amount of dollars in lines of credit. We took care of our credit when we were young, so we could access that." So
Hey, talk about that for a second. I know a lot of young people don't understand credit. You leveraged that.
I
And
leveraged it.
You realize that, hey, this is a tool, and this could help us in the future. We can leverage this, and
Exactly
good
right.
credit.
It's very important.
Very important.
Very important to be able to have access to money when you want to try something that you've been dreaming about a long time.
and I like to say good credit is really nothing more than just doing what you say you're going to do.
That's exactly
You
right.
borrow this money, you pay it back.
That's right.
It's not their fault that you can't find a reason to pay it back.
Exactly. So Logan says, well, we need to find a place somewhere by the industry. So we go to Center Street in Deer Park, and there was an old Guidry's restaurant that was abandoned right there on Center Street. You know, I remember walking in this place, and there was crawfish on the floor still, you know, it had been abandoned for a while.
And they were good crawfish.
They were great crawfish.
Yeah, they're good.
And so she said, okay, we're going to get a lease on this place, a 3-year lease. And, of course, it's a gamble, right?
It is.
It's X amount of dollars. It's 2008, so pretty good deal. And the negotiator that she is, she said, okay, we're going to do a 3-year lease with the option to buy at this set price at the end of 3 years. And he said, no problem, just go ahead and sign the lease. So we moved in there, and I'm in there. We had to divide this little bitty room because it had obviously where the dining tables were at.
It was a restaurant.
Where the bar was at. It had 2 roll-up doors or 3 roll-up doors where they cooked the crawfish, and then you'd come into the air-conditioned part.
Been there many times.
And so I went in there, and Logan would show up after work, and we'd put up a wall, and, you know, we'd sheetrock it, and we did the best. I went to Costco or Sam's and bought some plastic tables, those 6-foot tables, and bought some folding chairs. Okay, guys, we got our office. You sit there, I sit over here. And we had telephone lines and internet lines and everything. Just kind of, you know, we're a beginner.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have a lot of money to spend here. This is to get started. So we started off that way, and you know, we got our first opportunity to do a training class, and they were like, okay, so we need some equipment. Well, we need to go buy some equipment. So I'm borrowing from here and borrowing from there to get it done. I got a good friend of mine that lives in our neighborhood. He'd let me borrow a trailer, let me borrow his truck. You know, I just didn't really have anything, but I wasn't going to buy anything until I was sure that we had a job. And I figured, coming from the emergency response side of the business, you tend to make things happen when you need to make them happen. So I was confident that I could find the resources.
You get resourceful.
I could do it. So we got going on that, and it was slow. Business was slow.
Yeah, because 2008, 2009, it's not really the best time to start a business.
That's exactly right. 2008 was kind of just forming the company, you know, and 2009 was the start of it. And, of course, that was the disaster year. You know, the banking industry failed, and, you know, everybody's, you know, the sky is falling. So
a lot of people would say, hey, Roy, now's not the time to start a business. You need to go back to work.
Everybody told me.
You started a business in probably one of the worst economic environments.
I took a business plan to several business owners, and the thing that was consistent amongst all of them is, why are you starting a business now? Well, they didn't understand that I didn't have a job, and if I didn't do this now, you know, I'm not going to get another opportunity. I'm 50. You know, I'm going to work probably another 10 years, and by then I'm not doing it, right? And I had the support of the family. But what they didn't see is that there was so much talent, you know, that was now unemployed. Yeah. And that's what I saw. I said, man.
You saw an opportunity.
I saw there's this guy, there's this guy, there's this guy. You know, we can put them to work. You know, these are quality guys that people in the industry know them. And that's what happened. So we started to say, you know, you want to work for us? And they knew Logan. They really didn't know me other than, you know, my position at the previous company, because I had been removed for 10 years internationally, right? Nobody remembered me from the previous 10 years when I was
South America,
their doors, right?
Trying not to get kidnapped.
So I was, man, where have you been, Roy? We haven't seen you in a long time. So it was really hard, you know, to get that ball going again. So there was a pool of talent that I saw that said, this could really help us, you know, attract some of these customers. So January, February of 2009 were really slow. You know, I told Logan, I said, Logan, we can't take a paycheck anymore, man. You know, we're running out of money, and I can't take a paycheck, and you can't take a paycheck. And I know this is tough, but I need to know from you right now, are you going to stay with me, or are you going to leave? Because I'm going forward. I'm going forward on this, and I would love for you to be part of it. He said, Roy, he didn't even hesitate. He said, I'm going with you. We're going to get through this. So I was the guy that would come into the office in the morning. I went and bought, remember, I hadn't done this in years. When I was a VP at the other company, I had people help me. I had the sales team help me. So now I'm making the cold calls. I bought this book that had everybody's contact in this book, and I would pick up the phone, and Hi, my name's Roy Creager, and I work for a company called First, and here are the services that we provide, and not like an opportunity to get an appointment with you, and we're not interested. We're not hiring anybody. We don't need any vendors right now. I heard everything, and you talk about getting punched in the gut and getting knocked down. It was horrible.
So every day you got punched in the gut, you got knocked down, but every day you got up to start it again. You know, that's to me is so huge, because it's one thing getting knocked down, but it's another when you get up, and then it's another when you get up over and over and over. But look where it's got you.
Yes. Yeah. One thing I kept telling myself and was failure is not an option.
That's right.
Failure is not an option. And I kept repeating those words and praying, you know, I needed the Lord's help to get through this, because it was so heavy. I felt responsible for losing the house. I felt responsible for not being able to provide for my family. I felt totally responsible, and it was tough. So, but you know, you get up every morning, and you know, you go back to work, and you pick up the phone, and you do what you say you're going to do, and every now and then, you know, you get an appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that pressure can make or break you.
That's right.
And I can tell you're getting a little emotional here. And it's kind of interesting for people, you know, to rewind. You got a nice car in the driveway. You got different houses, but you could still remember back to that emotion of, I about just completely lost everything. It's still that real, but you had to push through.
And bearing the responsibility, you know, it's your fault, Roy. Even though my kids were not gonna blame me, but it was personal to me. I wasn't a quitter, and you know, I never quit. You know, in sports, I never quit anything in my life, and I was not about to quit this. But I remember driving to work and just crying all the way to work. You know, it was hard. Laying in bed, and I told Celeste, laying in bed one night, that I said, you remember that John Wayne movie where, you know, it's an old black and white movie. They're sitting on this log raft. You know, can't remember the female that was with him, and you know, they're going down this river, and there's a fall coming up on them. You know, and I said, honey, I can see that fall, and I'm scared, and she said, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
So I get back to work and making the phone calls, and I made a phone call to a guy that I did not know, but I was familiar with the company down in Bay City, Texas, and it was the South Texas Nuclear Project plant down there. So, and in this book, I knew his name, I had his email address, I knew what his title was, I knew everything about it, and I called him up and I said, John, my name's Roy Creager. He said, hang on a second. I thought you were somebody else. Boom. He hung up on me.
Oh,
This was probably September of 2009. I had struggled from January through September in 2009. I was factoring the little bitty invoices that I had through a loan shark.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Wow.
He's a good friend of ours, but business is business.
Yeah.
And he helped me, and I'm thankful for that. Philip, you know who you are. And he helped me, but he said, business is business, Roy. And I know why he did it. Don't give up. But I was factoring at 2.5% a month on my invoices. He let me borrow $100,000. We leveraged one of our rental properties. Here we go again by having an asset that you can leverage.
Sure.
Because also in early 2009, we got a letter from all of our creditors that we had these perfect credit scores and lines of credit. They froze all our lines. So now I have no money. All this $1 million that we had available to have cash to operate on dried up. So now I have an invoice. I have no way to pay my electric bill, so I'm factoring my invoices as 2.5%, which is horrible. But guess what? You do what you have to do.
You gotta do.
So from January 2009 to about August, September of 2009, it was just horrible. I was now $200,000 in debt, you know, having to leverage another house, you know. But this man said, you know, keep doing what you're doing. And
sometimes you got to stay the course. There's a time to abandon, but sometimes you keep staying.
And Celeste, well, I'll get to that in a minute. So I started making these calls all the way from January. So I ran across this one guy, and maybe it was earlier than September. Maybe it was in July of that year. And I told John what it was. He hung up on me. So I remember getting up that day, just got up from my desk, walked out the door, and left. I'm like, it's just, that one really hurt. I just couldn't take it. It was one of those days where I was like, I was at the end of my road right there. Just, what did I do, man? What did I do? I left a perfectly good opportunity by going and working for somebody else, and providing, here. I put everything on the line. But you have to, it takes guts, man. It takes guts.
You got to be all in.
It takes guts, and you question yourself. But an hour goes by, and you're back up again, and you're boxing again, right? You're fighting again. So I call this guy a second time a month later, and he picks up the phone, and I said, "Hi, John. This is Roy Creager again." He said, "Hang on a second. I thought you were somebody else, Roy. I ain't got time for you." And he hangs up on me again. Okay. So I said, this is really bad. So I keep my cold calls, and, we're getting more clients now on the training side and more trained, but this was more of a standby rescue, which is what our business does as well. More of a standby rescue. I hadn't done the first one, but I knew with the manpower and working, around the clock on turnarounds, which you're familiar with, that's a good revenue feed right there. Yeah. It's very good. So I called the guy back in November, and he answers the phone, and I said, "John, before you hang up on me, this is Roy Creager, but please don't hang up on me." I said, "I would like to send you some information on my company," even though I had his information, and I just need your permission to do that. And he said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, we provide, training. We provide standby rescue. I don't need any of that. We do everything through Texas A&M, and I got somebody else that does all those services." I said, "Well, can I please just send it to you? Go ahead and send it, but we'll never use you." This was November. So in December, I follow up on him, and I said, "John, Roy, again, don't hang up on me. I'm just want to make sure you receive my information. I got it. I haven't looked at it, but I got it. But I don't need you. Thank you for your opportunity and stuff." So on January the 14th of 2010, I'm headed to the office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I get a call from our girl there, and says, "Roy, we just got a call from STP, and they need a rescue team around the clock." And I'm like, yes,
victory,
yes,
persistence.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
And of course, not knowing how we were going to do it,
that's a different part.
But I was happy, and so that was the beginning of the success for First, right there.
And it took, we're talking decades and decades until you had that pivotal moment.
That's it. So we get this job, and we're literally working around the clock, and finding the people to travel from Deer Park to Bay City. I went and rented cars at Enterprise Rental Cars so that they could get there. I didn't have the vehicles, So
you made it happen.
I made it happen. This is that was my background. Make it happen, right?
Yeah.
We start this project, and it's doing the job. It's providing income now, okay, for us. And remember, I still don't have a paycheck, and I left.
Okay, back to your company.
I left a six-figure job, and real estate is in the tank, and now I'm going over a year with no check.
A whole year with no paycheck.
A whole year with no paycheck, and we're borrowing from my dad, we're borrowing from my mom, we're borrowing from my sister-in-law, we're borrowing from my sister with a written agreement, paying them back at 10% interest, and we paid every bit of our debt as soon as possible, okay? Right. So we go back to this job that we landed, and I get a call about a month later from one of his workers, and he said, "My name's so-and-so, and I work for John, and there's a little conference happening here in Bay City that all the nuclear providers are coming into town for a conference, and we'd like for you to be part of this exhibit. We're here at the Hampton Inn in Bay City, Texas, and there'll be a little booth, bring a table, etc., and go ahead and introduce yourself." And I said, "Sure, I'd love to do that." So I showed up to this thing as Logan and I, we're standing there. It's just a little bitty room at a hotel, right? And you got glove vendors and, some of my competitors in there. And I'm proud because I'm working, right now. And so got got kicked off about 12 o'clock. About 5 o'clock, see this guy walk in with an entourage, and he walked in the door, and he worked all his way. He got to our table, and he said, "Who is Roy Creager?" And Logan said, "That's him right there." And he took his hand out. He said, "My name's John, and I'm the jerk that hung up on me all these times." And I'm like,
wow.
"Well, it's nice to meet you." And that's all I said. "It's nice to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity." So he left the table. He turned around and faced the rest of the vendors in there, and he said, "Okay, guys, this meeting is about to break, this conference. I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes to go in there and talk about your company, and then they can come and visit with you on their own time. So I need everybody's business cards." So we give him business cards. 5 minutes goes, so we follow him in there. He goes into the conference room. He said, "Okay, people, I got some vendors here that they're going to do a little 2-3 minute speech on their company. And if you want to visit with them after that, it's up to you guys." So he has a stack of cards, and we're all standing there, and he does the first card, and they introduce themselves to the second card. He gets to my card. He looks at it, and he puts it in the back of the stack. And goes to the next guy, goes to the next guy, goes to the next guy. Then finally is my card. He says, "Okay, I got a story for you guys here." He said, "This guy, his name's Roy Creager. He's got a company called First. And this guy called me, I swear, for the last 4 months. And every time he called me, for the 2 times, I hung up on him." And he looked at his assistant. He said, Didn't I hit that number 5 button? Just delete, cancel, cancel, cancel." And she said, "Yes, sir, you did." But this guy was persistent.
Yeah.
And he kept calling me. And he kept calling. And when the opportunity arose, he was lined up. And he got a great opportunity with me, and we're happy to be able to
Persistence.
to do this.
I'm all about persistence.
Persistence paid off, and that really made me feel good about that. Because you don't realize it at the time, because all you're in a panic mode, trying to get some business, but what some of the things that you do are unconscious, if you would. You just keep doing them over and over again, and that's what I was
kind of
taught.
program yourself.
That's what I was taught in sales, and I think back to the early days of me being successful and doubling the revenue for this company is that you just keep going back, until you get yes for an answer. Ask for the business, right? Ask for the business. How can
you don't ask, you can't get it.
That's right. If you don't ask, you're never going to get it. Okay, so I would flat ask, "Can I earn your business?" And you're going to know right there where you stand, right? And so with that being said, that job lasted 60 days, and now I have some massive payrolls, right? And I'm borrowing and factoring these invoices to make this happen. And on April the 11th, the BP spill happens. And
The condo?
Yeah,
the one?
The mod condo. Yeah. So when I was a sales manager and VP of sales at this previous company, one of my sales guy was now the vice president of one of the main contractors that was working directly for BP. So I picked up the phone and I said, Mike, I know you're out there. I said, "Mike, I need to get on." And he said, "Well, Roy, what are you doing these days?" And I said, "Well, I have a company that we provide training. We provide a little bit of standby rescue, and I have safety people." He goes, "You got some safety people?" I said, "Yes, I got some safety people." He said, "Well, okay, let me get you in touch with the guy up in New Jersey at our office, and we'll get you a contract." And I said, "Great." So hung up the phone, and I said, "Safety people, where am I going to get safety people?" So I called a friend of ours that worked at Valero that was one of the guys that had gotten laid off during all this mess, right? So there was a bunch of safety people out there that were still unemployed.
Yeah.
So I said, "I need you to do me a favor. I need you, every safety person that you own, send them to the office so that I can get an application on them." So within an hour or 2 hours, I get a call from this guy from New Jersey, and he says, "Yeah, Mike called me up and said you need to be a vendor." And I said, "Yeah, I want to be a vendor." And he said, "Okay, well, I need rates and I need all these things." And of course, I didn't have a rate sheet at the time, so I created a rate sheet real quick. And I said, "There's only one stipulation." I said, "I am going to give you some great rates, but I need to be paid in net 14.
Oh, wow.
He said, "We don't do net 14. I said, "I need you to do net 14. I said, "I am organically funding my payroll. I have no outsource help anymore. I need net 14. Can you do that? He said, I don't know. I need to ask Mike about that. So they came back and said, we can do net 14.
Oh, wow.
I'll give you special rates. So I signed the contract, sent it out. I'm at Target. This was on a Friday. On a Sunday, I'm at Target. And my phone rings. And it says, this is so-and-so from Jersey. I need you to send, people to Louisiana, to Mobile, Alabama, to Pensacola, Florida. I need them everywhere. And so that's how the ball got rolling. I had these guys. I would have broken every HR rule because they're coming in. I'm taking a copy of their driver's license. They're signing the application. I say, okay, so down the street there's an Enterprise rental car. Go get you a rental car, and I need you to head to Pascagoula, or I need to head you to Fourchon, or you need to go to Fort Lauderdale, and wherever you need to go. And so now I had all these people traveling, and this thing is going now. Okay, now I have and right about that time, the other project, the project with the South Texas nuclear plant was just ending, but I had a bunch of cash tied up in there. And I needed the cash now to fund this, because now this was a big one. Yeah. It was a big one. And so I'm selling. Celeste had a brand new Mercedes. I went and sold it. I had another car. I went and sold it. We sold some jewelry just to make payroll.
Oh, my goodness.
It was ridiculous. I went to CarMax, Texas Direct Auto, took 2 cars to Texas Direct Auto in one day.
Cash me out.
Cash me out. They wrote me a check right there so that I could make payroll on it, because I knew my day was coming. So I picked up the phone, and I had this huge invoice, and I was willing to cut a deal with Wackenhut, who was the security company that we worked at South Texas Nuclear Plant. They were in Palm Beach, Florida. And so I called the executive vice president of Wackenhut, and I said, I need help. Call her executive assistant. I said, I need help. I'm on this job. I don't have the money. I need you to pay me. She said, Roy, how much do we owe you? And I had my invoices. She said, you know what? I'm going to FedEx you a check tomorrow. That's what she told me.
Wow.
And I'm like,
did you do the happy dance?
Are you serious? You don't know whether to believe them or not, right?
Right.
She said, you will have a check there tomorrow at 10 o'clock. It's a Saturday.
Checks in the mail. It's classic.
That's right. So at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on the door. Sure enough, it's the FedEx guy with an envelope, and there is my check.
Wow.
I mean, things just lined up. I know God was looking out for me, And so that money helped me fund get me going. I was still running behind. But and this happened in April. So by October now of 2010, the money is starting to come in. And it's getting big, and it's getting really big. So in November of 2010, I hadn't received a paycheck in 16 months. 16 months, not a paycheck. So I paid myself back. We paid all of our debt back. We healed up. We had some money in the bank, and now we had a business that we could start growing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the story on how it first got started.
That is definitely a success story.
So thanks to all these people.
Would it be safe to say then that persistence would probably be one of the things that you would want to convey, or did I miss that? What else would you want to add to what you
Stay committed, man. Stay committed. Be passionate about what you do, and do the right things, because people are watching. People are always watching. I feel like people were always watching me. And I tell employees this day, I'm watching. I see the people in here. I may not be here every day. I am retired now. My son runs the company, but I still see the people. And so if I have anything to say to these young entrepreneurs out there that are looking to fulfill their dream, my dream was to own a house with a swimming pool and own a Rolex and a Mercedes-Benz. Those were the things right there.
Those are your boxes to check.
Those were my boxes. I wanted a 2-story house with a swimming pool, own a Mercedes-Benz, and own a Rolex. Okay?
It's good to have goals.
Art William used to say when I was selling insurance, he says, you can say you want a Cadillac, but if you don't know what the color of that Cadillac is, outside and inside, you'll never get it. So you need
It has to be real in your mind.
It's got to be real. It's got to be real.
It has to be a goal, not a dream.
It has to be a goal.
I like dreams, but if dreams don't turn into goals, they just stay dreams while you're
right.
sleeping.
Yeah. That's right. So stay true, and if you feel like you're the kind of person that wants to work for themselves and have financial freedom, stick with it. Make smart decisions. Calculate your risks. Just all the things that I have learned in life in general, and be true to the people that are going to help you, because there will be people that will want to help you.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my life.
People want to see other people succeed.
That's exactly
You know
right.
what? One of the things I see him doing is the saying that I always say about you got to swing the bat to hit the ball. You were willing to swing the bat, and you missed sometimes. You missed that ball sometimes. Man, you hit a grand slam.
I did.
You finally caught it, persistence, and you hit a grand slam.
Well, thank you. We feel very blessed. My son, I want to talk about him just for a minute.
Sure.
You know, we think we raised two great kids. They're healthy, thank the Lord. You know, and they've made good decisions. I think our parenting had a lot to do with that. I think I was a hands-on dad. You know, they knew where the line was at, and they didn't cross the line. And I respect that they
You were gone a lot from working, but you're still engaged.
But they respected that.
Yeah.
And they knew why I was gone. They see it now.
Right.
It's funny because during this crazy, I got to talk about my daughter. My daughter was now a freshman in college at Texas A&M, and she had met a wonderful young man, Court, which is now a pastor. I love him to death. He's good to my daughter, and that's all a father can ask for. Yeah. And she goes to A&M, and they miss each other. And so she wants to come back home, and he wants to start his ministry. And in order to do that, he has to be married. And so they approached Celeste and I with the proposition of wanting to get married in March of 2009, where I don't have the funds to do it. I'm trying to run a business, and it's really, really bad. And so Celeste said, we're going to make it happen, Roy. We're going to figure this out. So we managed to have family and friends help us support the whole event financially to get this done. And they got married and off, and we never blinked. Now she says, I was so selfish. I did not see what you went through, you know, as a young lady now. That was horrible what we did to you guys.
Yeah.
Honey, you know, it is what it is, you know, and we managed to get through it. But you wouldn't have understood, you know. My son was a freshman in high school. He didn't understand what we were going through, but he understands now. So back to my son. Our daughter came, graduated from college and now works with my wife in real estate. She got into the education business and decided that wasn't enough money for her dreams. So she has that little entrepreneurial spirit as well, and has started a real estate brokerage now, and they do very good. And her Celeste is kind of her mentor. And my son Mason, he went off to A&M as well and went to business school, hoping that he would be my exit strategy to this. But you never know how things are going to work out. So, and he did very well. Had a few hiccups when he was a freshman in high school, like every 18-year-old does. And, you know, I think that straightened out his career path at that time to straighten up. Aside from having a conversation with Pops, you know, I think that, and I'm glad that happened. I look back now and I say, what a disaster, but I think it was meant to put him on the right course. And,
you learn from it.
You learn from your mistakes, and that's what's important.
You should learn from
none of us are
Not
perfect.
everybody does.
Not everybody does, but if you learn from your mistakes, you're going to be okay. And so he graduated from college and decided that he was going to step into the family business and just give it a try. And we talked about my exit being in a couple of years, and so he stood by my side, and I'm a numbers guy. He needed to be a numbers guy. You know, you got to know the numbers if you're going to have a profitable business,
That's
right?
right. You have to.
You have to know it, and he's very good at it. And I said, in 2 years, you know, this is what my plan is. You know, I'm 60 years old, and it's time for me to step back and see if this is going to work. If it's not going to work, then we go to Plan B, and you know, we sell the business. Yeah. And so, at a young age of at 24, he took over the business.
That's awesome.
And the only way it would work is for me to clean up my desk, leave the office, leave the building, and let him handle it and say, this is, you know, your new manager. And we have a age difference from the 60s to his age in 24. And this is a new boss. And every day we talk to this day. We talk once or twice a day. He gives me just the rundown, doesn't give me all the details because he doesn't want to, he doesn't want his dad, I guess, to get involved in having to make decisions that I'm an old school guy, just a little more abrasive than I need to be, because it is a different workforce this year, this time in life. And I just, call it what it is. I just wasn't raised that way. But regardless, he has taken the business to another level, and I'm so proud of him for what he has done. And it has allowed Celeste and I to really separate ourselves from the company and do what we wanted to do. We've been traveling quite a bit. We have several trips planned this year. We had a place in Cabo. We made a decision 10 years ago when we went to Cabo to buy a 1-week fractional ownership down there in a very nice golf community called Diamante, which was up and coming, had not been developed fully yet, and it's still in the process. And last year we had an opportunity to take the equity that we have in these weeks that we had purchased and buy products. So we build our dream home down in Cabo San Lucas, and we spent half a year there now. And I'm telling you, talk about living the dream. It's living the dream. I wish everybody could experience what I'm experiencing if it's what they want to do.
Sure. If it's what they want. And they got to be persistent like you were.
Yeah. I love playing golf. I'm playing golf today, and I'm not worrying about it. But, but I do count my blessings every single day, because I wake up every morning and nothing is for sure in life. Nothing.
You got to make every day count.
There's a lot of things we can, as we draw the net in right now, there's a lot of things we can take away today. You can never give up. Quitters, you can't be a winner if you're a quitter.
Winners never quit, and quitters never win.
That's exactly right. So you can't quit. You got to always swing the bat. And, you just got to keep trying. And, of course, there's a lot of faith. I heard you mention God, and you got to have your faith in God. But if you're out there, and if you don't get motivated over this about not quitting, this is incredible. Maybe this message is exactly for you out there. Never quit. And persistence. And so in closing, we always like to tell everybody to keep the guard up. You kept your guard up good and in life.
Because things are coming at you. Punches are coming at you.
Punches are coming at you.
You got to keep your guard up so you can get back up.
Every day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will get knocked out.
That's right.
Every day.
Well, it's been fantastic. Thank you for coming and joining us. And Mr. S, is there anything you want to say?
No, I just really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming out to share it, Roy. So
right.
I'll just close it out with our tagline.
Our tagline is we got to keep our guard up. So keep your guard up.
Keep your guard up.